I thought that was in my. Lisa's gonna have to bring us an extra pair. Reading glasses, I've left mine somewhere.
Got contacts, ma'am.
Can't share them, can you?
No, I can't.
I'll put them in my bag.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, JPs, Washington County citizens. We are now ready to go ahead and Washington County Quorum Court is now called into session. We'll go ahead and get the meeting kicked off. We will have JP Deacons. I think I saw him. JP Deacons, will you lead us in prayer and pledge?
Yes, sir. Please stand and bow. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight and ask your blessing on this meeting. I ask that you be with us as we make the decisions to guide our county. Please be with us as we travel to and fro. I want to thank you for the many blessings that you bestow on our country. And I'll ask for your guidance and your presence on all the challenges we face as a country. I also want to specifically thank you for living in this blessed region. I want us to be reminded that our blessings far outweigh our challenges. And as we work on the problems and challenges we face tonight, let us remember that the things that unite us way outnumber the things that may divide us. I ask your blessing on this meeting. These things I ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, JP Deacons. That was good. Ms. Patty, will you go ahead and do the roll and put up the agenda?
Susan Cunningham. Susan Cunningham.
She's here.
Patrick Deacons.
Here.
Sam Duncan.
Here.
Lisa Ecke.
Here.
Ann Harbison.
Here.
Suki Hires.
Here, thank you for unmuting me.
Andrea Jenkins.
I'm here.
Lance Johnson.
Here.
Willie Lemming.
Present.
Eva Madison.
Here.
Sue Madison.
Here.
Butch Pond.
Here.
Derek Thomas.
Here.
Chandra Washington.
Here.
Judith Yanez.
Here.
Judge, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. If you go ahead and put up the agenda.
I move adoption of the agenda. Second.
Sorry.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda in a second. Are there any changes?
Yes.
With that, I have a motion to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Judge,
Judge.
Yes.
I have two additions I'd like to make to the agenda.
JP Deacons?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would like to add two discussion items. I would like to get an update and overview of where we're at with the radio contract and tax. I would also like to get an overview of the Brentwood red dirt pit that the county has in the southern part of the county.
Second.
I'll say we have an amendment to the agenda. Radio discussion and Brentwood dirt pit discussion. And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So now go back to the adoption of the agenda as amended. Do I have a motion?
I move
Are
adoption.
there any other
of the agenda as
amendments?
amended.
Yeah. Are there other amendments? With that, Sue Madison, JP Madison, did I hear you say you
Move
approve the
adoption of
amended agenda?
as amended. Second.
You have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the agenda has been adopted.
I move that ordinances and resolutions be read by title only.
So is there any other preliminary motions? We have a motion to read by title only. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that motion passes. At this point, we have citizen comments. At this time, we have asked the citizens of the county to come and visit with us, share anything that they want to recognize, appreciate, or things that they want to raise concern. You'll have 3 minutes. When you're recognized, please state your name and where you live. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand if you're using Zoom. Do we have any citizen comments? Citizen comments?
Judge, there's no hands raised.
All right. With that, we'll go ahead and go to our approval of the minutes.
I move approval of the minutes with one correction. The word "on" is missing from line 165.
All right, we have a correction on the minutes of the letter on, the word "on." Any others? So we have approval of the minutes. No other questions. The minutes are approved.
We need a second, don't we?
No,
Not
we
on the
accept the minutes. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 7. You should have the county disposal report in your packet. I do have a couple of things I want to update. First, on some good news. Last week we were at 90% of completing the census. This week we're at 96.9% of completion. So the country is at 93.6% completed, and here in Washington County we're at 96%. So that's pretty good. We probably have some more work to do. We still have a few more weeks before the end of the census. There's discussion that they may extend it another month. In fact, they were supposed to end August 30th. They pushed it to extend to September 30th. And I think that has worked out and got a few more people counted. So anyway, that's good news. Regarding COVID, the last month when I shared with you, we were down as far as we had been since really got going. We were down to 198 active cases last month, and now we're up to 567 cases. The increase obviously has been centered around school starting, but in particular at the university. I guess right at 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, the U of A put some measures in place to begin working to work towards minimizing the type of spread there on the campus, and we're starting to see some of those numbers down. We were a little higher than 567 active cases, and so we're starting to see those numbers come down. I think tomorrow or next week, the university will decide whether or not they'll extend those measures they put in place, whether they start to relax them. But again, it was really to focus and have the students become more aware, making sure they do their distancing and et cetera. We had, at this point, we had over 8,600 confirmed cases in Washington County, with 7,800 of them with total recovery. We have had, sadly, 89 confirmed deaths, and so again, we still have yet to continue to make sure that we're watching, in particular in our nursing homes, and those other comorbidities that would help, would exacerbate the COVID. A lot of discussion has been going around the CARES Act. I think this will be the third package. I think Congress is still negotiating right now. Several months ago, we received $1.25 billion from the state treasury, from the Treasury, U.S. Treasury, to the state to support and help through the crises. And last week, the governor's office and their COVID task force agreed to $75 million being distributed or being available to cities and $75 million being available to counties for reimbursable costs associated with COVID-19. We're working currently with both FEMA and the state to apply for those reimbursable dollars. So looking forward to getting some of those dollars back into our county coffers. The National Center for State Courts, as you guys recall, last month shared their presentation, or was that earlier this month? Again, it goes so fast. They conducted their study. They had recommendations. One of the recommendations that they had was for the Justice Coordinating Committee. We will have that committee convene next month. I will get that date put on the county calendar so everyone is aware. We did talk about the census. Radio, I had a question about the updated radios, and I guess I can share that when we get to that point. Finally, I do want to recognize our road department, Charles Ward, Jeff Ward, as well as our road and bridge team. They received their, for the second year in a row, a safety award, and not very many counties receive that. So putting a lot of measures and metrics in place to receive that. They received a perfect score, even though it was not a perfect score. Perfect score is 100. They had 5 additional points that they were ever able to receive. So they scored 105 on their scorecard. So again, big shout out to our road department and our safety team for the work that they continue to do in managing and being safe out there. I also wish to recognize our IT department, Sydney Reynolds and Lisa Tolan. Last year, we shared with you that out of 3,100 counties in the country, they came in 9th place with regarding the Center for Digital Technology, who does assessment on IT departments across the country based on categories. And the category that we're in, I think, is 99,000 to 249,000. And so of that category, we came in 9th place last year. This year, we came in 2nd place. So big congratulations to our IT department. Clearly, working through COVID has really put a lot of stress and pressure on them, and they just continue to rise to the challenge. Again, thank you for the work that you guys do, IT department, especially working with our assessor's office, our building and grounds team, et cetera. Appreciation days were held today for our employees out at the South Campus. And again, we'll do some more tomorrow to thank our employees for all the work that they've done. Thank you to Caris Health for sponsoring and supporting that. But again, wanting to work with HR to do something to recognize our employees for, again, managing and working through, obviously, COVID-19.
JP Madison has a motion.
JB Madison, Eva Madison. That's it with the judge's report. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did not want to interrupt you. It was not related to your report. Jill Grimsley with Mitchell Williams has noted in the comments that she would appreciate a specific public hearing to be set aside on the resolution pertaining to mercy. So I would make a motion to amend the agenda that as part of that resolution, we have a public hearing and solicit public comment to comply with IRS regulations.
Okay.
I can't recall. That is on the agenda, but you're saying amended to add a public hearing
Yes.
part of it.
Yes.
All right, do I have a second?
Okay.
Okay, well, the pleasure of the court, all in favor of amending the agenda to add on the resolution, the public hearing? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so we'll put the hearing on that one when we get to that particular one. Moving to item 8, JP Deacons, ordinance amending the 2019, Council, will you go ahead and read that one by title only?
An ordinance amending ordinance 2019-86 by reducing the total amount of $144,057 in jail operations and maintenance budget for 2020 and returning those funds to unappropriated reserves in the jail operations and maintenance fund.
JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. Thank you, County Attorney Lester. I want to say that I think one of our most important jobs as a quorum court is budget and protecting the public fisc. And I know that we've had some really good debate on this particular ordinance. I think some really good discussion. I continue to highlight that we're going to have to make some funding decisions, particularly with regard to the NCSC study and the recommendations they're making there, and the, you know, a possible criminal justice coordinating committee that's getting off the ground, and some resources that they might need. You know, this ordinance, I want to just share where it came from. It came from my idea that we needed to start saving money where we could. This was an area where I knew we had spent more money and that we weren't currently using these positions, and that fact holds true today. You know, there's been some comments. This was never about law and order or a debate about supporting or not supporting the sheriff. This was an opportunity for us to, as a quorum court, save money where we had appropriated more earlier. It comes out of conversations that I had with other elected officials where they've had to lay people off and furlough people, and I thought this was a great way for us to save some money. I want to address the mechanics of this. Any money that we save in the jail budget that we've already appropriated to the jail budget, of course, stays in the unappropriated jail budget. But having that money there, making that money available to the sheriff, absolutely has an effect on the general fund, because we are consistently infusing money into the jail budget. So I want everybody to understand the mechanics of that. What he doesn't spend this year will roll over to next year and could have savings for next year's budget. You know, we've also said that it's not our money to touch. It's there because of the 1/4% sales tax, and I do agree with that, but we do have an infusion every year from general fund. It would be it's just the reality of what we face. It's it would be quite rare not to infuse money. And I also want to say that, you know, I continue to have communications with our elected officials. I have a lot of respect for Sheriff Helder. I had a conversation with him this afternoon, and he assured me that he will continue to work with us. He also assured me that it's his desire not to fill these positions unless absolutely needed. He will he used the word trickle these positions in if the population warrants it and grows. If not, they will not be hired. He also assured me that he would continue to work with the quorum court and give us notice if he sees this to be a need and he needs to fill these positions, to give us an opportunity to maybe have some feedback or do something different with money. And I just want to say I appreciate all that. I think it's great to have communication. It's great to have teamwork, and that's the ultimate goal. All that being said, I'm going to make a motion tonight to postpone this indefinitely, because I feel like we have good teamwork here.
There's a motion to postpone indefinitely. Did I hear a second?
Second.
Second, who was the second? JP Sue Madison.
Debate
Any other discussion?
on the motion.
Any other discussion on the motion? All right, let's go to public comments.
There's no public comment on the motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, JP Deacon. Item 9 is the consent agenda items. JP Harbison. Council, will you read those by title only?
Item 1 on the consent agenda is an ordinance changing the title of Computer Administrator to Computer Data Administrator in the Recorder's Cost Budget for 2020. Item 2 is an ordinance recognizing additional revenue of $4,803.36 in the DEM Fund and appropriating $4,803.36 from the DEM Fund to the DEM budget for 2020. Item 3 is an ordinance recognizing additional revenue of $31,167 in the JDC Grant Fund and appropriating $31,167 from the JDC Grant Fund to the Juvenile Detention Center Grant in a 2020-2021 budget for 2020. Item 4 is an ordinance appropriating revenue of $22,059.84 from the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program Grant Fund, which is the CARES Act OJP, to the general supplies line item in the sheriff, jail, and jail maintenance budgets for 2020. Item 5 is an ordinance transferring $2,901.26 from the full-time salaries line item to the part-time salaries line item in the Veteran Service budget for 2020. And item 6 is an ordinance appropriating $411,000 from the Bond Principal Fund to the Bond Principal budget for 2020.
J.P. Harbison.
Judge, I move that we pass these 6 ordinances.
Second.
There's a motion by J.P. Harbison and a second. Who's the second? J.P. Sue Madison. Any other discussion on that motion? All right, public comments? Public comments.
I see no hands for public comments, Judge.
All right, with that then, Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Willie Lemming,
Yes.
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Susan Cunningham,
Yes.
Derek Thomas,
Yes.
Judith Yanez,
Yes.
Patrick Deacons,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Chandra Washington,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins,
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Judge's ordinance passes.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. That ordinance passes. Okay, we're going to go to item 10, which is a resolution. And with the amendment, we'll go ahead and start with the public hearing part with public discussion or public comments. And so with that, let's take public comments. Please, when you come, state your name and where you're from.
If any public on the Zoom would like to make comment, please raise your hand.
Regarding the resolution, the issuance of health educational facility there.
On here.
Any public comments?
Judge, I don't
All
believe there are
right.
any.
With that, J.P. Pine, would you read the resolution by title only, Councilman?
Yes. A resolution approving the issuance of the Health and Educational Facilities Authority of the State of Missouri Health Facilities Revenue Bonds. We have Jill Grimsley with Mitchell Williams that can speak to this if need be, Judge.
That's fine.
Would you like for her to speak?
Adopt the resolution.
Let me get this down. Ms. Grimsley, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Yes, do you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for having us. We represent Mercy Hospital System in the state of Arkansas, and this is frankly a formality to comply with IRS regulations. These are bond obligations solely of Mercy Hospital System issued in the state of Missouri, and they take a portion of the proceeds they have received from those bonds and plan to spend them on health facilities in Springdale, which is a good thing for us. But I want to underscore that these are not obligations of the county or isn't the county in any way liable for this. It's just, it's a what's called a host city or host county approval process required by the IRS. And I apologize for taking your time up, but we have to dot our I's and cross our T's.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Grimsley.
J.P. Sue Madison.
J.P. Sue Madison,
I move passage of the resolution.
Second.
Second.
we have a motion and a second.
Public comment.
Any other public comments? Any other public comments? Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Willie Lemming,
Yes.
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Susan Cunningham,
Muted.
Susan Cunningham,
Yeah, I mean.
Yes.
Derek Thomas,
Yes.
Judith Yanez,
Yes.
Patrick Deacons,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Chandra Washington,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins,
Yes.
Vicky Hires.
Yes.
This resolution passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. That resolution does pass. Thank you, Ms. Grimsley. Item 11, J.P. Duncan. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for Blackberry Ridge subdivision.
So this is essentially a neighborhood within the county, and they're a state-sized lot. So it's 60 homes that would go on 90 acres. So overall density of 1.5 acres per home. The whole vision for this neighborhood is I got to meet with the property owner and actually tour the property, is to have the same benefits that you have of being in a neighborhood with the front porch opportunity to know your neighbors and have relationships. But then I think 59 of the 60 lots actually back up to the woods. So you've got, back porch views, so you're not sitting there looking at your, next door neighbor's backyard as well. So it's kind of the idea of a more rural type setting in the backyard, but still the benefits of the neighborhood. Really pretty piece of property. Really excited for the vision that Keith has shared with me as I went through the property. This went through both Fayetteville and our planning department and passed through both. So I don't see any issue with this. I move that we pass this. I guess this would be the first reading. So I move that we take this to the second reading.
We have a motion to move,
Suspend the rules.
suspend the rules and move to a second reading.
Second?
A second, not sure who that was.
J.P. Ecke.
J.P. Ecke, second. All in favor of suspending the rule, move to a second reading?
Aye.
All in favor? Those opposed? All right, council, will you read for a second?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board, Blackberry Ridge subdivision.
All right,
I move that we suspend the rules and take this to a third and final reading.
Second.
there's been a motion and a second to move to the third and final reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, council, will you read that one for a third and final reading?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for Blackberry Ridge subdivision.
Judge, I move that we pass the ordinance to ratify a conditional use permit for Blackberry Ridge.
Second.
We got a motion to approve the CUP and a second. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? With that, Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
Sue Madison,
Yes.
Willie Lemming,
Yes.
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Susan Cunningham,
Yes.
Derek Thomas,
yes,
Judith Yanez,
Yes.
Patrick Deacons,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Chandra Washington,
Yes.
Eva Madison,
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins,
Yes.
Vicky Hires.
Yes.
This ordinance passes.
Thank you, Ms. Patty. That ordinance passed. All right, we're on to item number 12. J.P. Harbison. Council, will you read that one by title only?
Yes, this is an ordinance appropriating $6,557.87 in the Quorum Court budget for 2020.
All right, this is, to upgrade our, microphones in the courtroom. Is this on the second reading and at the Quorum Court, or is this just the first reading, right?
This is just the first reading. It was tabled, it was postponed until this this meeting at the last meeting, so this is still on a first reading.
Okay, I move that we pass, ordinance 2020. What? Yes.
This is an ordinance, if it gets 10 votes, it won't require a second reading. If it does not receive 10 votes, it will automatically move on to a second reading.
So we have a motion to pass the ordinance. And we have a second? Do we have a second?
I have a question.
Hold on just a moment.
Do we have a second?
JP Lemming.
JP Lemming. Okay, we have a motion and a second. JP Madison? Sue Madison?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a question for our county attorney. Is there a requirement in our ordinances that items go to a committee first? And did this go to a committee?
Yes.
There are, when they can, they're to be sent to a committee. However, if the ordinance, your rules that was passed, I believe, at the beginning of last year in January, state that if an ordinance is presented to the county attorney's office at least 5 days prior to the meeting for which it will be presented, it does not have to go to a county. There was some debate on that when we had that ordinance was brought up in January of 2019, and it was amended so that things could go straight to the quorum court without having to go to a committee, because the original ordinance did require that everything went to a committee, and the court chose to modify that ordinance so that there was a provision that would allow things to go straight to the quorum, directly to the quorum court without having to go to a committee.
Can we find that in the county code right now? Has it
Not
been-
right now. The county code, no, but you can find it in the county clerk's office, or I can email that ordinance to you.
I would appreciate it if you'd email it to me, but why isn't it in the code?
We're transitioning our code codification over to the AAC, and so as we do that, that's what they'll be updating that as they codify our code.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Any public comment?
JP Hires.
JP Hires?
Thank you, Judge. Am I muted? I am. Okay. I just want to say, I said this last time that this came up. I have a really hard time spending $936 per JP for some JPs to attend in person. I feel like this hybrid situation is kind of dysfunctional. The public is having a hard time seeing all of the Zoom participants. We are having a hard time seeing who is talking in the big room. And so I'm pretty uncomfortable with this ordinance. I feel like it's not a good spending of taxpayer dollars when we could all be doing this functionally on Zoom. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Hires. Any other discussion? JP Jenkins?
In addition to what JP Hires had to say, oh, thank you, Judge. It's working. We're here right now. We did it last time. We did it in the last few meetings. This works for those who want to attend and those that feel like they shouldn't. So, thank you.
Thank you, JP Jenkins.
JP Madison.
JP Madison? Eva Madison.
Thank you, Judge. So I have to agree with JP Hires. I think this hybrid scenario is not working. I think that we're still in a pandemic, and spending money to allow people to attend in person seems completely unnecessary, because we functioned better when we were all on Zoom. It was more conducive to having a public meeting that the public could participate in. And I just have to say, I look at the horseshoe, and I don't think we're compliant with the mask mandate because folks aren't 6 feet apart. And I don't think we're setting a very good standard as a government entity. And so the thought of spending almost $7,000 to enable a situation that seems like not a good idea strikes me as a waste of money. So I'll be voting against this. Thank you, Judge.
Any other discussion?
Judge, a few in the courtroom would like to speak. I think Patrick Deakins was first. JP Deakins.
JP Deakins, you recognize?
Thank you, Judge Wood. I'd just like to say that I'm in full support of this. I'm glad to be back in the court doing the people's work, and I want to thank the judge's office and especially the IT department. I know that anytime you do something like this, there's going to be hiccups and hurdles, and I think they've done a great job to accommodate all of us and work all the kinks out. And I also want to say, if you remember, we were, before the pandemic ever hit, we were discussing upgrading our audio system anyways. There are some people on the court who would benefit greatly from that, from an audio perspective, and so I think this coincides with all of that. We were already planning to do this. It's a great opportunity to be inclusive to everyone, so I am very much in favor of this. Thank you, Judge Wood.
Thank you, J.P. Jenkins. Any other discussion?
In the courtroom, Willie, J.P. Lemming.
J.P. Lemming?
Yeah, I would just want to make it clear that this system that we're going to look at is going to be for the people that has to wear hearing aids and all that, and that was the ones, and I was thinking the people that's out there on Zoom and stuff that couldn't hear it too. Is that correct, Lance? Yeah. Okay, but I think it's something to do with the hearing aid stuff and stuff like that is why it's important to get this so the people out there can hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Lemming. Any other
One more.
comments?
J.P.
Eki?
Thank you, Judge. The pandemic will end. We're looking forward to it coming to an end, and therefore Zoom meetings will no longer be necessary, and we will all have to return to the courthouse, and we will need a good sound audio system in place when that happens. I think this is good, we're moving forward, and this is something we've been struggling with for many years. So, and I remember one of our former JPs, Rick Cochran, coming in talking about how we needed an updated system because he and Justice Madison always struggled with the systems we had in place. So I'm in support of this. The pandemic will end and we will resume to the courthouse. That's all I have to say about that, Judge. Thank you.
All righty. Any other discussion? Okay, so J.P. Sue Madison, then J.P. Eva Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I think I've gotten confused. The initial explanation was that this was to help with the Zoom situation with 2 different locations. And now I've heard comments that this is stemming from we were looking at upgrading our audio several months ago to the tune of over $100,000, I believe, which we certainly did reject. So I'm confused what the real purpose of this $6,000 is right now. And at this point, I can't support it because of the vagueness. Thank you.
J.P. Eva Madison.
Thank you, Judge. So the ordinance itself says that this money is to enable the court to hold hybrid meetings. So it is a function of several members of the court deciding to be there in person and no longer on Zoom that is requiring the expenditure of this money. It has nothing to do with sound system issues that we looked at before, according to the ordinance that's been presented to us. And so if we're really about saving money, then get out of the courtroom, get on Zoom, and let's save the public $6,500. And then when Zoom is over and we can safely all meet together, then we can revisit the sound needs of the quorum court. But this sounds like a temporary purpose to allow some people a convenience that is not necessary during this time. Thank you, Judge.
J.P.
Thank you, J.P. Madison. J.P.
Pond.
Pond.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to make a comment about this new microphone setup we have in here now. As a good example of an improvement that some of you haven't seen because you haven't come down here and seen how it works. Just not having to have these other microphones stuck in front of us that we have to turn off and on when we're going to speak. It's been quite an improvement. And if they have something to add to that that'll help the hearing impaired, I can't see why we don't need to go on with it, so people who are hearing impaired can better participate in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pond. Any other discussion? Let's go to public comments.
Judge, we have Mr. David Freeman, who has a hand raised. Mr. Freeman, see, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead,
Okay.
state your name and where you're from.
My name is David Freeman. I am from Fayetteville. I've noticed in the past 2 subcommittee meetings that there's been a real difficulty in the split between some justices meeting in the courtroom while others meet from remote locations. And I worry that investing in this equipment upgrade furthers the quorum court's investment in this split, which has led to discrepancies in justices communicating during the meetings and has made it difficult for me as an outsider who is not a justice to engage as a member of the public. Rather than investing in equipment for the physical courtroom, I would like to see the county invest further in this remote Zoom situation, which we will be depending upon for the indefinite future. I've appreciated how this virtual format makes it much more accessible for myself and others of my community to participate in our public governance. There are investments that could be made to expand this access, considering the situation that some of my neighbors are in, where they don't have access to reliable internet. Additionally, these meetings do not meet accessibility needs for people with different abilities. This money could be invested in services for closed captioning or live translation, including both verbal translation and American Sign Language. I just think that to close that, I wrote this stuff down because I was a little bit nervous to articulate all my thoughts, but it's just, this is a really good opportunity for us to invest in accessibility for people who are actually viewing this virtual format. And I think that this virtual format will continue for the indefinite future and also opens up a lot of potential for further accessibility that can't be met by meeting in this physical courtroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Any other public comments? Public comments. All right, with that, Ms. Patty, no, is that just move on to second?
No, it's an appropriation ordinance, so you have to vote on it.
Okay, Ms. Patty, will you go ahead and take the roll?
Sue Madison,
No.
Willie Lemming,
Yes.
Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Susan Cunningham,
Yes.
Derek Thomas,
Yes.
Judith Yanez,
No.
Patrick Deacons,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes?
Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Shonda Washington,
No.
Eva Madison, Eva Madison,
Muted.
No.
Andrea Jenkins,
No.
Suki Hires.
No.
We'll move on to a second reading. It's only 9 and 1, 2, 3.
Was that 8 or 9? No,
We have
Ms. Patty?
9
Nine.
for,
Okay,
and 6 against.
all right, so that just moves on to the next reading. All right, item
Judge,
13 moves.
I would like to suspend the rules and read this on its second reading.
We can't do that.
It's already been voted it had to happen before we voted to move it. We're item 13, which will be the amended discussion items J.P. Deacons added, which will be the radios and the dirt pit.
Look at the dirt pits.
J.P. Deacons?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I did say, so the radios, I did have some thoughts I was going to share with during the judge's report. As you recall, the citizens of the county passed a quarter-cent sales tax for the upgrading of our communication systems and infrastructure improvements. The rough estimate would be about $11 million anticipated in coming from that tax. I got a lot of calls from fire departments in particular, but in general, just about the particular radios. And when those started to come in, the COVID hit hard. And so I had to reassess and say, well, let's because we're anticipating almost a $4 million loss in revenues. And so I said, we have to look at this whole project differently and make sure that it's in priority. And so the priority, based on what types of dollars come in, would be infrastructure first, the whole simulcast, our interface and software with Fayetteville and Springdale, and then we will move to our radios. And that will be provided those type of dollars come in as expected or anticipated. Again, we're anticipating 11 million comes in. We just don't know that, and we still don't know where COVID will end, and does it turn in the spring of next year? We don't know. But again, we wanted, and I will send a note. I've been working on that, sending a note out to our first responders, our EMS, as well as our fire departments, to say just that with the anticipated revenues, should COVID continue to have some pressures across the time frame, we'll get our first report in October of what those numbers start to look like. And then in January, we should have enough to go ahead and get started. We'll have, which will be putting down monies, down payments, to go ahead and start. And then we'll start working through the infrastructure piece, towers, those type of things, which would be about 18. It's about a 2-year process and project. So again, the purchase of radios is not going to happen for at least 18 months to 2 years. But anyway, the infrastructure would happen, provided we have enough money. We'll move on into the simulcast piece, and then we'll move on to radios. Now again, even starting with the radios, when we get to that part, we would look at the county first, the sheriff's department, the dispatch, our DEM team. Then we will move secondarily to our EMS and local law enforcement, and then finally we'll move into the fire department. I don't know how you can predict how much more we would get, but again, we wanted to make sure that we set the priorities as far as what has to happen first. For us to go and again purchase radios now without having infrastructure does not serve anyone. Now the question becomes which radios, and again, we did the contract with AWIN, the Motorola, so we will be looking at Motorola radios. I am committed to making sure that we have good equipment to provide good services, best services to our citizens. And if we find that the sheriff's office in the county, the EMS, or even some of the local fire departments are not satisfied with the particular radios, we can either look at an upgrade of those radios or look at another vendor for radios. But again, that's still 2 years out. We do have sample radios out there for the fire departments to look at and use. I think, in fact, JP Deacons, I think today we got word that one of your fire departments in a very, very remote area out there where you live was able to walk and talk and use that radio to our team out in Conway. So that is for the very radio that we were wondering, is it going to meet the needs of our department? Again, we still got a long time before we get to that space. But anyway, that was my comments about the radios. Again, I will be sharing a note or a letter to our law enforcement, EMS, and fire departments, and a note to kind of speak to that very thing that I just shared with you guys. JP Madison, and then was that JP Thomas?
Both JP Madisons, Eva
right.
and Sue.
JP Eva Madison, JP Jenkins, and JP Sue Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I just have 2 questions. So I think there is a rumor that a letter of intent has already been signed with Motorola. That I appreciate.
Yes, the contract has been signed.
The contract has been signed. Can you tell me what bidding was done and what public notice was done to effectuate that?
There was no bidding done because Motorola has a state contract on that state contract system, and anytime you do business with them or on a state contract. Secondly, Motorola, doing the AWIN system, they're the only people that do that. And so because of that, they are the only vendor, and you don't have to do any bidding on that.
Well, it's my understanding that Motorola's statement that they're the only vendor compatible with AWIN is not accurate. And I am very disappointed that we did not provide local vendors the opportunity to bid on such a significant project. I certainly understand the advantage of taking advantage of a state contract, but I was certainly led to believe in the process where we voted on this, that there would be a much more open process and that local companies would be given the opportunity to participate. And so I certainly hope that as the process plays out, local folks will be given an opportunity to participate. and that our local fire departments and police officers will be able to give their input on the products that they will use. So thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
AWIN, or Motorola owns the Arkansas Wireless Information Network. They own the system. They're the only ones that can do the infrastructure work, just to make clear. So there is no local bidding on the infrastructure part. There's no way to add any components. Motorola is the only one that does that.
JP Jenkins and then JP Sue Madison.
Thank you, Judge. So as far as the infrastructure part, I understand that about the Motorola having owning AWIN, but in speaking with many local fire departments, police departments, sheriff, I've heard nothing but good things about locally run business to purchase the radios. So is this contract, does that include radio equipment as well?
That's correct. That was part of the package. So when we get to that part of actually buying radios, we will buy the radios that was part of the contract, which help us get the infrastructure and reduce the price, et cetera. Again, if we are finding that the sheriff's department, the DEM office, our dispatch offices, or local fire departments or are not satisfied or is inferior, then we would either upgrade the radios that they have to an even better Motorola radio, or just outright go to a different vendor, which would be the Smith radios.
Right, and that's just it. I've done the research. I've spoken
That's
with
right.
and it's just even the cost price comparison is a great deal of a difference between a Motorola and what other options are. And so I'm kind of disheartened that we didn't get to have a discussion as a court. I put a lot of work into it.
Go ahead, JP Madison.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, JP Jenkins. JP Madison.
Oh, sorry, wrong button. Wrong button, I'm sorry. I meant to hit lower hand. I hit mute. I asked to unmute JP Sue Madison. Can you unmute it? There you go. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay.
They're both at the top, and I just hit, instead of lower hand, I hit mute. I apologize.
Thank you. First, I want to say that I was shocked to learn that we were already part of the AWIN system, because that was available statewide after the 9/11 event. And I am very much committed to us all being part of AWIN. So I don't have problems with that so much as the fact that this discussion kind of withered away. We had some fairly intense discussions for a while among various meetings of the Quorum Court, and then it just seemed to fizzle out, and I didn't know what had happened. I'm a little concerned now that we might end up in a position of needing to buy 2 sets of radios for some of the users in the county, because if the coverage is not good in certain areas, or if some folks just don't like the way the handsets feel from Motorola, I want everybody to be happy and only have to purchase once. So I think this went away from the attention of the Quorum Court, and that bothers me. But I'm a huge supporter of AWIN, and I think we all need to be on the AWIN network. But I'm not so satisfied with how we got there. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Madison. Other discussion? JP Deacons.
Yeah, I just want to, thank you, Judge Wood. I want to clarify that we all understand that Motorola is the person for the implementation of the infrastructure. We know that AWIN and P25 is a good step for the county. Where I'm getting a lot of feedback is from our local rural firefighters who are very disappointed in the fact that they don't feel like they've had the input in this particular situation. I was shocked to hear that the contract that was signed included the handheld radios, which is what this is all about. Even though Motorola controls the infrastructure, you could buy a different brand handhelds and work on that P25 system. It's an open public system. What I'm hearing from our firefighters is, after seeing the contract, the model that's included from Motorola is not rugged enough for the public service that they provide. They want a better product, and some of them specifically choose that they do not want the Motorola product. And, I feel like we we put this tax out to the public, and we asked our first responders, our rural firemen, to go out and sell this tax to the people and ask them for this money, in the very much assumption that they were going to be fully included in this upgrade. And to hear that now we've had to come to a different set of rules, and there's a prioritization here, and the rural firemen are going to be last, and they're not probably going to get the model that they want, that's very concerning to me. And I have to say that I'm dedicated to making sure these individuals are accommodated, and that these men and women that go out and do these jobs get what radio they want. I've said it before, I've never used a handheld radio in any time in my career. I'm completely ignorant on what the requirements could be or what people would want. I don't care if these individuals use two cans strung together, if that's what they want to use. But now that we have the tax and we've asked the people for it, we have to obligate ourselves to taking care of these first responders. And that's what I'm passionate about seeing. And I want some different options on the radio purchasing if that's what they desire. Thank you, Judge Wood.
Thank you, J.P. Deacon.
J.P. Johnson.
J.P. Lance Johnson, and then J.P. Lemming.
I don't understand. Fayetteville's done, Springdale's done, Rogers has done it, Benton County has done it. Be very curious to how those other folks have done it and how they handle these radios. And I've had a lot of experience with handheld radios. My construction career, every time we had a problem and whatever we had didn't work, we went and bought Motorola's. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Johnson. J.P. Lemming.
So we could talk all night about radios. You said they are a letter of intent, and you said there's a contract out there. Is that correct? You said that.
You have it, that's correct.
Okay, I asked Brian for that. Can I get a copy of that sometime?
Yes.
You have, I provided you with a copy of that the other day when you came to my office, the 223-page contract with Motorola.
I've got a book that's 700 and some pages that's got everything in the world in it, but it does not, it's got a place for a signature and it's got a place for a contract, but ain't none of that in this book.
Oh, no, the one you got from me has 223 pages.
Okay, we'll get that to you. All right, we'll get that to you.
And this 788 radios that we're talking about, it's worth about $1,300,000 or $400,000. And why buy radios and throw them in a closet and you're not going to use them? The people out there cannot use a radio that's not critical, safe for EMS, firefighters, and all of us. We can't do that. And, you know, the sheriff, we keep picking on the sheriff. We need to use different terms of language for the sheriff. Tim Helders is a great man, and he's not the one that's pushing this. It's the radio committee and all that. We don't need to point our finger at him, make him look bad, because a lot of police officers out there, Elkins and Lincoln and Prairie Grove, you know, they think their officers ain't as good as the sheriff's, and that's not true. They all need good equipment. They all need good radios. And we don't need to give them a radio that's not mission critical. You can't get it wet. How's a firefighter go in the house fire and fight a fire with a radio you can't get wet? That is silly. You can't do it. So why waste the money? If we got a contract that tells me you've signed a contract for these radios and this equipment, that means we can't back up. Is that true or not true?
I don't know. I have to go back into our contract and visit with the lawyers to find out, but we'll get that to you. The question again, though, is if, and I agree with you, J.P. Lemming, and I've shared this with you directly, if we are not satisfied with the product and it doesn't do what we was told it would do, we got 2 years. If it's not doing what we don't want to do, the departments are now able to work with those radios, and if it's not giving us what we need, then we can either upgrade that radio or go and look at another vendor. So I want them not to be out there with equipment that they need to take care of the needs of the people in the county.
Okay, you talking upgrade a radio. Well, the radio that we can buy right here that we're used to using that's worked good for us for many years, we can buy for around $1,400. The price for the Motorola right here in this book that I've got from y'all, it's $1,636.37 for a radio that you can't even use. So does that mean Washington County's going to have to come up with more money to upgrade the radios, or what does that mean?
Yeah, we'll find out when we get to that spot to purchasing radios. We're still 2 years out.
I know you're 2 years out, but if you've signed the contract, what's that tell me? Is that contract worth the paper it's wrote on? Does that mean nothing? What is it?
Got you,
That's
JP
what I
Lemming.
can't get. I can't get that information that I've asked. And so, you know, I guess that you can just sign contracts all day long and you can just change them all the way through the river and do whatever. I don't think that's how contracts work. When you set a $10 million deal, they're gonna hold your feet to the fire and that's what you're gonna get. Is that not true, or am I just crazy?
Oh, no.
You can change, we can have change orders in the contract, Willie. There's just a lot of things that go on with contracts, and you're asking a lot of questions that are scenario-based and what ifs, and there's a lot of moving parts to that. So I don't know that there is a good answer for what you're asking. Can we change the number of radios or the types? Yes, we can. Can we lower the numbers of the radios that we're getting? Yes, we can. Motorola knew good and well when we signed this contract because of COVID that the funding mechanism that we have may not produce the money that we thought we were going to produce. We really expected a big hit. We've been fortunate so far that we've not gotten that, which is great for us. But ultimately, yes, there were provisions put in this contract because of that very reason with COVID, to ensure that we weren't stuck with having to do everything in the contract based on the funding. So yes, there are some things that can move and change, and time will tell where we are with that.
I appreciate you working on the committee, and you guys have done a yeoman's job. Thank you, JP Lemming, for continuing to work with us on this as we move forward on it. But we did talk about COVID and the reason why we did the contract as such to allow us some of that wiggle room in case we didn't have 11 million coming in. JP Pine?
Yes, thank you. We all can sense a little frustration from the fire chiefs, the volunteer fire people, first responders in general. And I'd like to just kind of explain a little bit to you about this. Doesn't really, you know, we keep talking about, well, this is the radio they want, or this, the model from the input that I've had, the model that has been chosen by the Motorola folks for these first responders, not being rugged enough, not being water resistant. I can kind of explain that to you a little bit, maybe. It's kind of like if you ever accidentally got your cell phone wet and then maybe dried it out, and then part of the time it works, part of the time it doesn't. You wind up having to go get another cell phone because you don't know when it's going to work and when it's not going to. It's kind of partly got to do with the being water resistant and being rugged enough. Give you an example. Maybe a first responder gets a call. This may happen several times in a year. He jumps in his vehicle and he's going because the central EMS needs backup, they need assistance. He's going to, let's say, an attempted suicide. Then he's on the way, he gets another call from dispatch saying stage 4 police. He does, if that radio is still working properly by the time that next call comes in. If he doesn't receive that message, stage 4 police, he might just go on down there before they get there. In this day and time, that's not a good idea. We don't know why this individual attempted suicide, who's there with him, that called in, what kind of pills they might have been taking, what kind of pills they ought to have been taking, but they didn't take. It's a safety issue, and it involves the people that these responders that are out there to serve, and it involves the safety of the individuals making the call. This is not a thing to mess around with Motorola or any other company and say, well, let's just try this radio. If we already know the darn thing's not gonna work, because it says right in the book, the specifications of that particular radio not suitable for this kind of cause. I could probably take that same radio and charger and just set that on my desk at home, and it would last me maybe the rest of my life. But it's not gonna work for these guys that have to go on these calls. They already know, it's already been tried. Motorola knows it won't. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pond.
Hold on, there's a couple of people who want to speak for a second time. Is there anybody that hasn't spoken the first round who would like to speak before we move to the second time? J.P. Madison had her hand up before. J.P. Madison, Eva, and then
J.P. Eva Madison, and then J.P. Lemming. And then J.P. Jenkins.
Oh, can you not? Sorry, hold on.
Thanks.
There you go.
Sometimes gets a little loud at my house, so I've been muting myself. I just wanted to ask if I don't really care to read a 223-page contract. I appreciate that it's available, but I was just curious if, sort of consistent with our budget years being year to year, if the contract contains a provision that it's consistent or dependent on Quorum Court appropriations. Okay, so I mean, there is sort of some control still. Okay, that's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
J.P. Lemming and then J.P. Jenkins.
You made the comment that Gary Hull, which I talked to Gary Hull today, and I talked to him about them radios. I've got a radio that's an APX 4500 that belongs to the city of Fayetteville that I took home in Evansville, Arkansas. And when I got just outside of the city of Lincoln, that radio put a red light on it and said no service. Gary Hull is just lucky that he's bouncing off of Springdale's towers. It's the only reason he's being able to talk at all, because his Motorola radio won't work on the system that we have today. So he's getting a little feedback off the radio system up there. So that just tells you, I mean, yeah, you want to brag on their radios, but that's not a true fact what you're putting together there. Thank you.
Here, J.P. Lemming. And again, this is we haven't put any infrastructure in, which again, we're talking about the radios. We haven't put any of the infrastructure in. So you're exactly right, and probably exactly, you know this stuff, you're out there. But I would imagine that we'll have better coverage when we start putting more infrastructure and simulcasts out there. J.P. Jenkins?
100% you're going to have better coverage. I mean, I mean, that's why we're doing it to begin with. The infrastructure.
You're not recognized.
That's correct, J.P. Lemming. J.P. Jenkins?
Thank you, Judge. In the research that I conducted, I found out that Kenwood has comparable radios that do the same exact as Motorola, and then some, for half the price of what this contract is going to have our county pay. Also, the fire chief stated to me that the radios that are in this contract are not NFPA compliant, which is National Fire Protection Association. They're not compliant. Also, one other thing is in the sales tax that these men and women that serve us pushed for us to pass, it never showed that the fire departments would be last in line, and it would be like a tiered sheriff's department, you know, EMS. That was not ever a part of what was voted. So I just wanted to state those things and share that information. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Jenkins. All right. And then the Deacon, you had another comment on the dirt pit. J.P. Deacon.
Yeah, I appreciate this being added to the agenda. I want to go over with the Quorum Court that I've had some county employees reach out to me with some concerns about the Brentwood dirt pit. I have discussed this with Judge Wood this afternoon on the phone call. I understand that his office is looking into it. I want to caution everybody that he doesn't want to go into a lot of detail tonight, just to help him figure out what's going on. But what I would like to do is and in fairness to Judge Wood, I emailed him this morning, which I know is extremely late notice, and told him I'd like this added to the agenda, and he said, well, that's that's difficult for me to put anything together on this subject. So I would also like for the other justices to honor that he has let me put this on the agenda, if you will. And what I would like to do is for us to outline maybe some questions we have about the dirt pit, and maybe we could roll this agenda item to the next month's meeting, and we could have some sort of presentation about it. First of all, I think it would be beneficial for us on the court just to have a general overview of what's going on down there, what are the goals of the county. You know, I understand that there's probably been some drone footage taken. I think it'd be beneficial. I went out and looked at this particular site yesterday. There's a lot going on, and I was really taken aback. I did not understand the full breadth of that project. I'd like for the rest of the justices to hear about it and understand it. And then also I would just like an overview of the permitting the county has, the ordinance that established this dirt pit. It looks like there's been quite a bit of work down there, and I'd like an overview of the costs that have been expended to develop that site. And then also prospectively, what's our cost benefit of what we've invested down there? What's the benefit we see for the county dollar-wise, and several other things. And I invite the other justices tonight to include any questions they might have so that they can be addressed at the presentation. But I want to say that this is an important issue to a lot of county employees. I'm getting a lot of feedback about it, and I would like for the Quorum Court to understand what's going on at Brentwood. Thank you, Judge Wood.
Thank you, J.P. Deakins. J.P. Sue Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. Members, I got an alert from a concerned citizen and went down to the dirt pit. It may have been about a month ago now. There is a deep ravine that goes down sort of as you approach the place where the dirt is being mined. And it's very different from the Weddington dirt pit. It's sort of taking the dirt off the side of a mountain, and this deep ravine that is before you get to that side of the mountain where we're mining the dirt has had an enormous dam built across it. So the ravine is dammed. And I found that shocking that our county people would have done that. And similar to a situation with the previous judge, I immediately called DEQ. They subsequently, almost within a day, sent 2 local inspectors out there that I've talked to. And there were some minor issues with the dirt pit, but a major issue, construction of the dam, which was way outside the scope of the work and not included within the permit. They are in the process of writing up a report that will be sent to the enforcement part of DEQ. That I asked what might the consequences be, and they said whatever enforcement decides, it could actually be removing the dam. The dam looks to me like it was made to dam up the valley, to have a lake there, which would have no benefit to the county as far as a dirt pit. And I think we really need to take a very strong look at how this sequence of events unfolded, because it seemed to me to take a lot of county time, equipment, and manpower to build this dam. And when I was out there, there was a lot of county equipment there and a county pickup truck, but I couldn't see any people. And I was there with my husband in about the middle of the day. So
Thank you, J.P. Madison.
Answers there. Thank you.
Was there somebody else in the courtroom? I can't see.
J.P. Lemming.
J.P. Lemming.
Really all I want, Brian, I know FOI'd that information out there, and what they sent me back, it was so no way in the world true for 8 months worth of work out there. And I asked you to get me a new FOI or whatever we needed to do to get my information. The information that I want is from January to present, and I want to know every culvert that was bought and put out there, every gravel we built the driveway with, And I've got machine hours.
JP, let me slow down. I'm just trying to make sure I got that. You said January to present, and what was that, culverts and what?
What I have here that I got from you is Winslow Dirt, didn't come from you, it come from Carl, I think, but it says Winslow Dirt Pit, financial year 2020 excavating report, January 1 through September the 9th, 2020. And if this is so, we've got men that's worked out there for 8 months with 50 hours, and we got bosses that's been out there since then for 80 hours. There's no way that people have been out there and worked that long and got 50 hours and 80 hours. There's a lot more hours than that. And you've got equipment out there that's got numbers on it that says it's out there 3 hours and 5 hours. Why would you have a piece of equipment set out there on that place for 8 months for that many hours? Come on. I just want the true record of what's out there. That's all I ask, and that's all I want.
We'll pull that.
And I'm just gonna say it this way. I'm sorry that you're having to go through this because.
Well, I appreciate you coming. You came to me and shared that there was something going on, and when you did that, we started looking into it from the permitting and some of the other pieces.
I'm gonna say you did, and I'm gonna say that's all the information I want now because I think you're working on it, and I think you're gonna handle it, and I'm giving you that opportunity to do that, and I think you're gonna do all right on it. So I know you're waiting on a report to be able to do all that, so that's all I want to say about that.
Thank you, JP Lemming.
JP Lemming, just to clarify, you asked if you needed to FOIA that, and I told you you didn't, I'd get it to you, and so I did. I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
And I appreciate it, but I would like to have that information, and you can see what that information is for a little later on, okay? Thanks.
JP, Sue Madison has her hand up.
JP
First,
Sue Madison.
Is there anybody else who wants to speak?
Well, before JP Madison, anyone else want to visit or have a comment? Okay, JP Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge, for letting me have a second chance here. May I make the same request that JP Lemming has made, that I be provided the same information? Also,
I think for JP, go ahead.
I'd like to know about the drone flight that we did. How many drone flights have been done of the area, and why have they been done, and what did it cost, and who did it?
Okay. I think what JP Deacons has shared, we think we got that. So again, overview of that pit, as well as when the ordinance came to establish the pit, what are some of the goals of it, what's the cost benefits, the cost and the amount of hours, machine hours, as well as personnel. We can work through that and work on that and make sure we get that out to you guys, as well as the permitting piece. Again, we got them out there, I think, on a Friday, and then I know you, JP Madison, got in contact with them. They went out there on a Monday. And so it's all in works. We still haven't got responses back. But if we have that update by the next meeting, then we'll definitely share that with you guys. With that, let's go to committee reports. Ms. Ann, JP Harbison, I'm sorry.
All right, finance and budget met, and then the budget has met, and we are in the process of looking at a new procedure to allocate money to the elected officials. So anytime you do anything new, there are going to be some glitches and some things that we're going to have to back up and do. But I think we're started on the process. I think it's going to be a good process, and I am going to ask everybody to be cooperative and work on the process and make suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Harbison. Jails, law enforcement, and courts, JP Johnson.
Yeah, Judge, the report's in the packet. I was not able to attend that meeting that night. I watched it on YouTube about 5 days later. Thank you.
And with that, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. Quorum Court meeting is now adjourned. You guys have a good one.
Thank you, sir.